Hello! It's time for Update 37 in The Lord of the Rings Online. That's right, I'm back and we're getting straight into Update 37 for LOTRO. So Update 37 is releasing on the day of this video, August 29th. The update is going to be titled The Humble Homes of the Holbytlan, which is a hint at the new housing neighborhood coming in this update, and partially at least in support of the release of the new River Hobbit race. So the River Hobbits, they don't really have much information on how you can actually purchase them. You see the link to learn more takes you nowhere right now. And there have been basically zero promotions of what you will have to pay for a River Hobbit, so that's great. But with the River Hobbit, there's also going to be a new housing neighborhood. You don't have to be a River Hobbit to get this, but it's in the same like very starter location where basically River Hobbits originate from in the game, which is going to be Lindleby in the Wells of Langflood zone. There are some neat new things with the housing neighborhood. So along with those, there isn't the huge crafting overall. Most of that's going to be coming, of course, with the new expansion and new crafting tier, but they do have a new Forester crafting event, which is just going to be an event where you can earn some crafting rewards, notably some really powerful tools for gathering with the Forester, of course. And at this moment, there is only an event for the Forester, but they do plan to add more events for more crafting professions and gathering professions in the future. Another really big feature of this update that is going to impact everyone is going to be the stat squish. I'll get into more details later, but basically stats will go down and numbers will go down, which will be very nice. And then the other two big things coming in this update is of course going to be the Beorning revamp. Notably, all the trait lines are getting updated, but especially red line and blue line are getting buffed. There are some other changes to yellow line, but overall the class is just being updated with that. Now there's also, if we ever get to it, the Guardian update. So Guardian has also quite a few changes going on with it, and the biggest change is actually going to be the removal of the yellow line specialization. Like other classes with two specializations, now the yellow line will provide supplemental traits for your red or blue line builds. On top of that, the red line has been updated and the blue line has been updated as well, so it is a full class revamp. There are some other relatively minor but in some cases important changes coming to the game as well in this update, including some class changes, housing and decoration, item and rewards changes, that is. I see Lexia's really missed me making videos, totally distracting me here, but there are some other changes we'll get to. And the first of these changes that we're going to get to is at the very bottom here, which is the legendary item level cap is going to be increased for level 140 characters. This is increased from 490 to 495 on August 30th. So with this, you'll have to reforge your LI to get that item level and be able to enhance your legacies to that level. I mean, enhance your traceries to that level. Honestly, I kind of feel like this should have been done, or we should have been at 499, maybe even before the shadow. That might be a little bit extreme for a long time ago, but let me know what you think if we should have already been at 499 by now. By the way, this is the cat that does not usually bother me when recording videos. This one's Lexi. The one that's normally up here and rubbing against the microphone is Piper, so I don't know what happened with the move, but it's almost like the cats have swapped. Another important thing that you might see is that racial traits will now give more appropriate values with their stats. So this does mean that some of these racial traits could be important. It's just something to keep an eye on when the update comes out at this point. Now, going back up, there is also a really important change to sturdy steel keys and their associated loot boxes. This is basically the old loot box and key system when you could actually earn those in game. They are actually completely getting rid of those. So at the Forgotten Box vendor, you cannot actually be able to get these anymore, and sturdy steel keys will no longer be available from the LOTRO store. Unfortunately, I didn't really get much word out for warning for y'all to use those, but hopefully you don't have too many remaining. I know I personally do, and I just haven't been able to log in the past couple weeks. There are a couple also nice quality of life boosts if you have a large essence and tracery carry-all, and that you can go to 1000 of any essence, and that does include traceries and enhancement runes, and then those smaller ones can also hold more than they used to as well. And then one more relatively important of these minor changes to get to for this video is that the weekly missions quest will no longer give you a 1000 virtue XP consumable item. Instead, you're going to directly get 1500 virtue XP. This does mean you get more virtue XP, but I know I personally will miss the flexibility possibility of getting a 1000 Virtue XP item because I could like send it to my alts or something. But again, there is the benefit that you do get 500 more Virtue XP, which is kind of a 50% buff in this case. Let me know your thoughts if you prefer the greater Virtue XP or you like the old flexibility of being able to send it to your alts, for example. Actually, we have one more of these relatively minor but very important changes with classes in general, in that skill animations used to be incorrectly affected by the type of weapon you had equipped. So this was actually noticed a lot by players with weapons like axes and hammers, and I believe spears as well, even though they haven't mentioned them here. I could be mistaken on that one, but basically clubs and swords especially were known to be faster. So it is good to see the increased consistency, and you can now rejoice in being able to use your axes and hammers and not feel like you're falling behind compared to somebody using swords just because they had faster animations. Now, they have not made any notes on racial discrepancies between animations, which some players have observed. Personally, I haven't ever seen much actual data, even though it's something I could easily collect recording videos and the such. I just haven't actually seen much on this. If you're aware of any good sources for actual data collected on the different animation speeds for different races, please do let me know. But anyway, the take-home message here is that weapon types won't impact the speed, the animation speed of abilities, so you can basically get the same DPS no matter which weapon you have equipped, barring any other differences between them. Now, as for the class changes, both the Beorning and Guardian I will have separate videos on, and I already do have some videos on their fairly finalized state from how they were in beta if you're interested in checking those out. But we do have some other class changes, even if they are relatively minor in comparison to the big two class revamps. In particular, a huge quality of life change that I always like seeing in LOTRO is the removal of skill delay. So for burglar, consumable items, and signals, you will no longer have skill delay there. And the Mischievous Glee is going to be a ratings-based heal rather than percentage-based heal. I know Standing Stone Games has been wanting and has been going away from percentage-based heals, so this is something we basically could expect. For champions, they do have a couple changes here, especially with Wild Attack, but first, you can use two-handed clubs beginning at level 10. I honestly didn't know that you couldn't do that before with champions, but now Wild Attack, if you are dual-wielding, it will have that correct animation, and even if you're using a two-handed weapon, it will actually have two strikes, but it will do damage equivalent to the dual wield variant, but it gives you two chances at applying the critical buff with this. It does in this case now have the same animation duration as the dual wield version. Now the Lore Master, we know that revamp is in the works right now, but they do have some important changes for the LM, and I think one of the biggest ones here is the pet damage has been increased across the board, and in my experience based on the beta, it has been increased significantly. Like, pets actually do damage now. They don't just like barely tap your enemies. So I am really excited to see that, even if we're not quite getting the full Lore Master revamp, this might actually make some blue line builds relatively interesting compared to what they used to be, and just make the Lore Master more fun to play, especially with landscape difficulty now in the game. Quality of life change and buff really to Wisdom of the Council is that the cooldown has been reduced to 3 minutes, and you now have a 50% chance to trigger the Reflect effect on all damage types, and that buff will last 10 seconds. I honestly don't remember what it lasted before. But then there's one more important change with Air Lore, so that's going to have a short duration and a long cooldown. I believe it's a toggle skill right now, but during that time frame it's actually going to be more likely to give the damage reduction and reflect effect. So just a general balance change to how Air Lore functions. Alright, so getting back to the stat squish, a couple important things. I mentioned that the numbers will go down, but they should go down by about a factor of 10. I know my Warden, for example, had a little bit over 200,000 morale when I had around 2 million before update 37. So that's roughly what you can expect for your character. But also, they not only have squished these stats, but they have also smoothed the stat curve as you level. So with that, you won't see as many ridges and valleys in terms of difficulty as you level up in like big jumps. For example, with old expansions, I know level 86 used to be infamous, even level 106 with Mordor. So you shouldn't see as much of that with a smoothed out curve there. You also might notice that your character is relatively squishier as monster damage has gone up, but so has player healing, so you can potentially not necessarily mitigate it, but heal up after taking the increased damage a little bit faster. Another important balance change is that monsters that are higher than your level will start doing a bit more damage to you and basically be more difficult when you're fighting mobs above your level. So they will have that small bonus to their damage and mitigation for each level difference to your character, but there is this automatic mischance, so you basically get deflected a lot against higher level mobs. That still will be the case when they are 6 or more levels above you, that you can start getting deflected, but it sounds like they have completely removed that for mobs that are 5 levels and under above you. And of course, for mobs that are actually at your level or below your level, none of this will have any impact. Now, I know Standing Stone Games started to preview a little bit of maybe a broader stat revamp in the game that I wasn't so sure on if I really liked it. I kind of disliked it for different reasons, even though I kind of got the idea of where they were coming from. So if you saw that, that's some of my brief thoughts on it. But with this, what we are seeing is both Vitality and Fate are going to be relatively nerfed, and that the actual stats that your character derives from those is going to be reduced for all classes. Now, how this works with the broader stat squish at this point is really unknown, at least to me. Maybe if you played beta, you know a little bit more at this point, but they do say this should keep their overall contribution similar to what it was, so maybe there will be no overall change really. Along with this stat squish, there are going to be some PvMP changes with that, but as you all hopefully know, I don't really play PvMP. And because today's a backwards day with Lexi bothering us instead of Piper, we are continuing to go up the notes and to get a little bit more about the crafting event. I will have more details and plan to have a dedicated video just on this crafting event, but basically if you are a forester, you can participate in this event daily. It takes a little bit to run, and there is a time period of waiting while you're either waiting for other players or for it to just automatically start. But basically it's a sort of competition. This is outside of the Combe area and Bree, by the way. It's basically a competition where you do a bunch of different quest-like tasks of just gathering wood, carrying stuff around, and different things like that, where you can compete for first place, second place, and a consolation, hey, you participated prize. And basically with this, you can purchase different things like crafting recipes and ultimately pretty good and actually unique crafting tools that in this case allow you to have a greater chance to gather rare materials. So they're basically best in slot crafting tools for gathering at this point. We'll see how much of a long term that is when we get the full crafting update and potentially future crafting events, but there's a lot of things, including some neat cosmetics from this event. Now, unfortunately, this event is not going to be running full time like we originally expected. Basically, the events were known to cycle. When there are multiple events, they will cycle and only certain ones will be on, and there will basically be a rotation. But initially, they were saying that the Forester event would basically always be running because there's no other event. They always wanted to have something running. But it does sound like the first implementation of this is it will be offline for 2 weeks and then return for 10 days and go on that rotation. So it will not constantly be available upon release. And just as a quick refresher at the end of the video, the two other really big things are going to be the new River Hobbits race. I'm considering making one. Please let me know if you actually want me to. I don't know how long I'll play it because I don't really like playing Hobbits, but the River Hobbits, at least for me, are somewhat appealing, even if they are looking more like teenage humans than just another variant of Shire Hobbits. I also have found some appealing things of the Hobbit houses. Perhaps it's time Louis VII finally becomes a homeowner in Middle-earth, but I'm not 100% sold at this point because there are, unfortunately, with each of the housing options they have, there are compromises. And by the way, these are all premium houses, so you have to either pay mytho coins or housing writs to get these. On a more exciting note, I am really looking forward to the Guardian revamp and really looking forward to the Beorning revamp. So I am super excited for those, as well as just having the stat squish will make playing LOTRO a little bit nicer. Let me know what you think of update 37, and with that, I hope you all enjoyed this video and my grand return in a completely new location after we said goodbye to the last one. I still need to do some work behind me, but yeah, things will probably be slow for a little bit as I get this place into a little bit better shape as the dust settles. And really, it's just great to be back, and again, thank you all for your support getting me to 15,000 subscribers for one, and for your support during my little break as I move. Anyway, rambling aside, if you did enjoy this video, don't forget to like and subscribe for more, and thanks for watching, everyone.